What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Form Check Friday. This is the series where we take your viewer submitted videos, we toss them up on the screen behind me, and we try to offer constructive criticism on how we could maybe be a little bit more efficient in our lifting. Now, the last time we left off with a gentleman named Hakan, and we're going to pull his video up here, and we're going to go through what I have to say about that. Also, if you guys are interested in having your videos critiqued on the channel, go ahead and send them to formcheckfriday@gmail.com, and we'll go from there. Excuse me, I managed to get sick on my travels. I just got back from the IPF World Championships in Dubai, and then went to Belgium and had me a wonderful time. So we did record a couple of form checks for you all, but unfortunately the camera died during the middle of it. We reconnected it and continued filming, and we had 2 full form check videos with corrupted audio. So sorry guys. Let's look at Hakan's deadlifts here now. It looks to me like, we'll just kind of walk through this here. Like, I think we could pull into a bit of a better back position before we start. I think one of the things that's happening is we're kind of grabbing the bar and just trying to pull on it. I don't think there's a whole lot of rhyme or reason to this deadlift. He sounds like he said he's been deadlifting for about 2 months, so he's quite new to it. He says he feels a lot of it in his back and not in his legs. So what I would do here, Hakan, is I would try to get a good amount of force and tension, just kind of pulling the shoulders down towards your butt. And then when you initiate the lift, think about driving through your knees. I mean, it's that old adage, like, lift with your legs, not with your back. And it's not absolutely the truth per se, but in this case, I think it does apply to how you're deadlifting. I think if we can think more about bracing with the trunk and pushing and deadlifting with the legs and the hips, then that might help a little bit. So brace with your back, push with your legs. And hopefully that makes a little bit more sense of it for you. Sounds like you're just pretty new to the deadlift and might need some time to kind of figure out exactly how you want to move and how you want to lift with it. That's okay. Just take your time and practice when you're a newer lifter. So our next lift comes from Phil. Now he says he's got a sticking point halfway up in his squat. He said he can't find any help on this issue. He finds info on sticking points in or out of the hole, but not halfway up. So he's including videos from 2 different meets here. And both are third attempts. One's a make and one is a miss. So I think this was the miss here. And you'll see that, yes, we're a little bit sticky out of the bottom. And that the miss is kind of a little bit higher than maybe where most people's sticking points are. Now, there's 2 solutions, generally speaking, for sticking points. And that number 1 is just get stronger, right? The more weight you can move through a full range of motion, the less deceleration we're going to have at any given sticking point. Now let's look at the one that he made here. And the other one is to try to attack a specific range of motion, as well as maybe some technical cueing. And I think in this case, one of the biggest things that's falling apart is the shelf. So where you're holding the back. Now, in your case, I might recommend widening the grip a little bit, because it looks to me like the bar starts to roll right out of the bottom, putting you into a bit of a compromised position with your upper back. And it kind of doesn't really express itself in terms of a stop or a sticking point until we get to, about there. So what a sticking point is a loss of velocity, right? We're essentially getting to the point where there's 0 acceleration on the bar. Now, the weak range of motion, or the range of motion that we generally want to tackle, is going to be probably about here. So this is the point where we begin to decelerate, or where we lose the most acceleration. And I think a lot of people think like, okay, this is where I get stuck, so this is where I need to train. Generally speaking, a good rule of thumb is to train a little bit below where you tend to actually run into your sticking point. So in this case, this might be a high box squat or a high pin squat, and that will allow you want it to be maybe 2 or 3 inches in your case lower than your actual sticking point, and that'll allow you to train pretty specifically that range of motion and hopefully build that up a little bit. I think I like the idea of a pin squat a little bit above parallel for you. So if you can mimic kind of this range of motion somewhere in here where you're kind of just above parallel, as well as just continuing to get the squat stronger overall. I apologize if my voice is a little bit off, or if I have some coughing fits during this, but like I said, I managed to pick up a nice cold while I was out traveling. So again, my apologies there. But we're going to dive into Daniel's bench video right now. So I'll let that play behind me here. Now, Daniel says he's a longtime viewer, learned a lot from the channel, attached are two of the latest videos he made for form check purposes. So he knows the angles are not the best, referring to another video of his squat. We're just going to look at his bench here today. He's been lifting about the last 3 years, making slow, steady progress, but he feels that his form could be better. Sometimes he gets some elbow pain from benching. So one of the things that I would try to work with on your bench, and I do offer this a lot as a suggestion, but trying to get your grip just a tiny bit wider. This to me looks like a very close grip bench, and if we look on the press, we have this little bit of an angle from the wrist kind of out, whereas I think what I would like is either for you to keep your elbows tucked a little bit harder so that you're able to keep the elbow underneath the wrist, or bring the grip out so that that sort of natural elbow position lines up a little bit better with where your wrists are when you're pressing. Because right now we're in a pretty flared, almost close grip position. And I think generally speaking, if we can stack those joints, often we'll have a little bit more success and be a little bit more efficient and consistent with our presses. So let's try that out, and hopefully that helps you, my man. All right, so next up, I'm really excited about this one. It's an equipped deadlift. Now, I do love me some equipped stuff. We're going to pull up the corresponding email here from Austin. So he says he just started watching the channel after being introduced to it through a friend. Since then, he's been keeping up for the content as I train for Dubai. So he says he's been running a DUP approach the last year, been working with his coach specifically in each lift. That being said, he doesn't do a lot of variation for deadlifts other than RDLs. He says his posterior auxiliary and general GPP work typically consists of things like glute ham raises and reverse hypers. Wonder if I have any suggestions for auxiliary or supplemental work to address his weak points, as I may note. All right, so the biggest thing here, you need to stop your deadlift reps. This bouncing, touch and go deadlifts, especially in a suit, is going to make the toughest part of the range of motion markedly easier. And therefore, you're going to miss out on a lot of training stimulus starting the bar from a dead stop. So if we watch this first rep and the bar speed on that versus the next rep, so much faster on that second rep, right? And that's because we've essentially skipped the initial phase of the movement. And I think by doing that, you're missing out on a lot of potential for getting better at breaking the floor. And that generally, to me, like getting into that position and breaking the floor, especially in a suit, is often a very, very critical part of the equipped sumo deadlift. So I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice with these touch and go reps. And I think that the biggest thing you could probably do is dead stop reps, or a lot more practice with singles might be another way to approach that. But those would be my biggest suggestions. I don't necessarily see any weaknesses here. I don't think this is an intense enough or a high enough RPE set for us to necessarily be picking much out in terms of specific weaknesses. But I do think that, dead stop reps are going to be your friend for sure. All right. So we got Dylan squatting next. And he says he just started squatting after a long break from it. He had a sprain in his hip flexor, refrained from any exercises that would aggravate it. So he just started squatting regularly about 2 months ago, and he's looking to get back to his 400 plus 1RM. This footage is from his last set of his last day, where he did 4x4, stayed at 315, hoping they would go up easy. The first 3 felt really good, but the last one was iffy. He says he didn't have any pain while lifting, but he thinks he struggles with his hips shooting up too fast. He's 19, lifting is a hobby right now, but in the future might look into competing. All right, so let's take a look at this. It looks to me like we're getting pretty loose in the bottom. I think we could do a lot to tighten that bottom position to be more consistent. So let's see if we can kind of figure out what angles we can attack this from. That's the goal. Now, how do we get there? How do we get you more tight? First off, that rep for powerlifting purposes is not going to be depth. So we need to work on that. We're also getting this little bit of a shift out of the bottom, telling me that we're trying to squat too upright and that it might be beneficial for you to use a little bit more lean in your squat. So the knees are caving a little bit, and they're kind of contributing to that hips like shooting back and up like this. So I think if you, number one, at this point before your squat, so before you initiate the squat, as you start right now, you're kind of just kicking your hips back and going into this like extension. And what I would like to see is for you to keep your trunk a little bit tighter as a unit and tilt the whole darn thing. So go from here to here, as opposed to going into this. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So that's going to allow you to kind of set your torso angle a little bit better, because right now you're really fighting to kind of like drive the chest up. And I think trying to maybe pull the ribs down a little bit, brace things down. And I think a big focus overall on trunk tightness and what your upper body is doing is going to have a pretty big impact on the squat overall. When you're coming out of the bottom of the squat now, so we've gotten to the bottom of the squat, which again I think should be deeper. What you want to do here is you want to try to keep these knees forward a little bit. What's happening right now is the knees are coming back. So we'll see here. I'll make a little mark on the knee. And what we're seeing over this next bit of the range of motion is we're seeing the knees shoot back a pretty large amount out of the bottom. So I think that's an area we could definitely work on being a little bit better. Trying to keep a little bit more tension into the forefoot and a little bit more knees forward as you come out of the bottom of the squat specifically. So that's probably some of the biggest advice I have for you, is to try to clean up and tighten up the trunk position, as well as just focus on keeping the knees forward out of the bottom, keeping a little bit more pressure through the forefoot. And lastly, we're going to put up my man Toby here. He's doing some bench press. And I'll read you a little bit about Toby. And everybody can comment in the comments section below and try to offer some specific and constructive critique and criticism for Toby here. And then next week, I'll come back and I will chime in and try to give my 2 cents on how Toby can improve his bench press here. So Toby says he's been lifting for about 2 years, then stopped for 10 months. Finally getting back into the swing of things, training for about a month now. He feels really rusty with all the lifts. So this is a single at 90 kilos. And he also submitted a set of 4, which we don't have here, but, or wait, let me see this. So this is the set of 4. My apologies. So this is a set of 4 with 97.5 kilos, I believe. So if you all out there can identify anything technically where Toby might be going wrong, or ways that we can try to offer Toby advice in terms of things to try out to get a little bit more efficient, to get a bit better lift going on, then please do so in the comments below. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure to tune in every Friday for Form Check Friday, except when we have terrible audio issues and then I leave the continent for 2 weeks. That makes for some troublesome video production. But if you are interested in submitting your videos, please send them to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. We use a random number generator and try to choose at least one that's relatively recent as well. We're doing our best to really try to service everybody and get everybody sort of as much as we can into these videos. We're trying to be very inclusive, as well as we are now choosing a squat. We're going squat, bench, deadlift, squat, bench, deadlift. If you guys haven't noticed, trying to get a little bit more lift variety in here so that there's really hopefully something for everybody in these episodes. Anyways, that's enough of my jabbering. We'll see you all in the next one. If you like this style of content, head over to twitch.tv/Calgary Barbell. Hit that follow button, maybe give us a subscription, and join us for Form Check Friday live every Friday at 12 p.m. MST. We'll see you over there. Thanks for tuning in, and bye-bye.